Today, we are turning our analytical lens toward a really fascinating artifact of modern communication. We're looking at instructional materials from the English Upgrade podcast, which is hosted by Mary Walker and Ryan Carter. Specifically, we're examining their modules on vocabulary of the day and also their strategic guide to English for job interviews. Now, on the surface, this looks like a pretty standard educational resource, right? It's helping non-native speakers bridge the gap to fluency.
It does look like that, yeah. You have your word lists, your pronunciation guides, sentence structures. But if you actually sit down and listen to what Mary Walker and Ryan Carter are teaching, and I mean really listen to the subtext, it operates less like a language lesson and I think more like a manual for professional acculturation.
And that brings us right to the core question we're debating today. Does this source material's approach to language, which, focuses so heavily on aspirational vocabulary and these highly scripted professional responses, does it empower the learner by providing a necessary standard for success? Or does it actually promote a performative, cliche-ridden form of communication that strips away the learner's authenticity in favor of corporate conformity?
It's that tension between learning to speak and learning to behave. I take the position that while the vocabulary is functional, the material advocates for a really rigid corporate conformity. I mean, it teaches learners to use what I'd call empty signifiers, phrases that sound safe but mean very little, prioritizing the appearance of a good employee over any genuine human connection.
And I naturally take the opposing view. I believe the source material offers a vital, pragmatic framework for professional survival and, I'd argue, psychological empowerment. By mastering these specific power words and structured responses, the learner is given the keys to navigate a complex modern workplace. So it's not about conformity, it's about access. You can't change the system if you can't even get in the building.
Access at the cost of the self. I think that's where we're going to disagree. But all right, let's look at the evidence. Where should we start?
Let's start with the foundation, the vocabulary of the day. The source material highlights 4 very specific words: opportunity, improve, confident, and practice.
A very specific curation.
Exactly. It isn't random, it's strategic. Take the first word, opportunity, which Mary Walker defines as a good chance to do something. Now just stop and think about the psychological weight of that for a moment. For a learner who is entering a new job market, maybe in a new country, they're often coming from a place of struggle or, necessity. Framing a job vacancy not as labor or survival, but as an opportunity, that is a profound act of reframing.
It's positive psychology, sure.
It's more than that. It's what linguists call linguistic relativity. The idea that the language we use literally shapes our perception of reality. By drilling this specific word, by making the learner say it out loud, "This job is a great opportunity for me," the source helps the learner pivot from a mindset of scarcity to one of abundance.
I see the utility in the optimism. Really, I do. But I do worry about the reductionism. It feels like a very specific type of conditioning. When you look at the other words, improve, confident, practice, they create this closed loop of constant self-optimization. It suggests the learner is a project that constantly needs fixing. I want to improve my English every day. Practice makes progress. It's an endless treadmill.
Or it's a growth mindset.
Perhaps, but let's see how they apply this to the interview context. This is where I think the strategy becomes, problematic. The source material provides a very, very rigid formula for the question, "Tell me about yourself."
Yes, the formula is name, years of experience, traits, and enjoyment of helping customers.
Right. And the advice attached to it is so telling. Ryan Carter says, "Many beginners make the mistake of talking too much. So the solution is a script. My name is Alex Johnson. I am a hardworking and reliable person."
And that is excellent advice. You have to understand the concept of cognitive load. A non-native speaker during an interview is under immense pressure. They're translating thoughts from their native tongue, they're managing anxiety, trying to read cultural cues, trying to formulate complex grammar. Their brain is running a marathon.
Sure, it's stressful.
It's not just stressful, it's neurologically overwhelming. By providing a pre-baked script, "I am a hardworking and reliable person,"
Walker and Carter are removing variables. They are lowering the cognitive load so the applicant can actually function. It prevents that rambling that Carter warns against, which, let's be honest, is often the death knell of an interview. The script isn't a muzzle, it's a life vest.
It certainly prevents rambling, but it also prevents humanity. It creates a robotization of the applicant. If every single listener of the English Upgrade podcast follows this advice, you'll have thousands of people walking into offices saying, "I am a hardworking and reliable person who enjoys helping customers."
And what is wrong with that?
Because at a certain scale, the phrase loses all meaning. It becomes a ritual rather than a communication of truth. When the source encourages the learner to use these specific descriptors, they aren't describing themselves. They are reciting a code. It teaches the learner that their specific, unique history, the things that actually make them interesting, is irrelevant compared to the standard hardworking template. It turns the applicant into a commodity.
I think you're asking for jazz before they've even learned the scales. For a language learner, ritual is safety. You call it robotization, I call it a scaffold. If they try to be too authentic too soon, if they try to explain the nuanced backstory of their career gap or their philosophy of labor, they risk being misunderstood entirely. The script holds them up until they have the fluency to stand on their own.
That's a fair point regarding safety. A scaffold is useful, provided you eventually take it down. My concern is that the material suggests this scaffold is the building. And this brings me to my biggest issue with the text, the power phrases.
You mean phrases like, "I work well under pressure"?
Yes. Let's look at the definitions provided in the source. "I work well under pressure" is defined as staying calm when work is stressful. "I am a team player" is defined as working well with others.
Those seem like standard, pretty reasonable requirements for any job in the 21st century.
Are they reasonable, or are they just concessions we've all accepted? By teaching learners to blindly claim they work well under pressure, the source is preparing them to accept exploitative work environments without complaint.
That seems like a bit of a stretch.
Think about it. It conditions the learner to believe that stress is a natural, inevitable state of work, and that their duty is to remain calm within it. It doesn't teach them to ask, why is there so much pressure, or is this team dysfunctional? It just teaches them to say, I can handle it. It's a linguistic surrender.
I just think you're reading a political critique into a vocabulary lesson.
But language is political. When you teach someone to say, I am a team player, you are teaching them to smooth over their individual edges. You are teaching them that the highest virtue is a lack of friction. It's compliance training disguised as vocabulary training. It's teaching people to be docile.
That is a compelling argument, but let's look at the alternative. Let's be real about the market. If an applicant walks in and says, I do not like stress and I prefer to work alone, do they get the job?
Likely not. No.
Exactly. The pragmatism here is undeniable. Employers do require these traits, whether we like the capitalist structure or not. Teaching a learner the phrase, I am a fast learner and adapt easily, gives them the specific keys to unlock employment. To deny them these cliches is to deny them a paycheck. The English Upgrade podcast isn't trying to reform the labor market. It's trying to help Mary and Ryan's listeners survive in it. They are trading social capital.
But at what cost to their integrity?
Integrity doesn't pay the rent. Competence does. And that leads me to a point I really want to drill down on, the psychology of confidence versus competence.
I was hoping we get to this. The source defines confident as feeling sure about yourself, and the example sentence is, she feels confident during the interview.
Right, now you might see that as superficial, but I would argue that confidence is often a prerequisite for competence, especially in a second language. There's a concept in sociology called performative competence. By teaching learners to say out loud, repeatedly, I am a fast learner, or I have strong communication skills, the source helps them internalize these traits. It's a form of linguistic self-actualization.
Linguistic self-actualization. That sounds like a very fancy way of saying fake it till you make it.
Is there a difference? If you can articulate the confidence, the feeling often follows.
I disagree. I think the source conflates feeling sure with being capable. The danger here is that we're teaching someone to project confidence without discussing the nuance of the skill. What makes someone a fast learner? What does strong communication actually look like, beyond just asserting that you have it?
But this is a podcast for learners, not a management seminar. They need the vocabulary just to get in the room.
But look at the phrasing again. She feels confident. It's entirely internal. It doesn't say she demonstrated confidence through her analysis. It suggests that the feeling is the victory. It prioritizes the internal state of the speaker over the external reality of their work. It's a magic trick. Say the word, feel the feeling, get the job.
And for someone who feels marginalized by a language barrier, that magic trick is a lifeline. You have to remember, many of these learners are suffering from intense imposter syndrome. They know they're smart, but they sound like children because of their accent or grammar. Giving them a power word like confident helps bridge that gap between their internal intelligence and their external presentation.
I do understand the empathy in that position. But I want to pivot to the flip side of this coin. We've talked about what the source tells you to say, but the what not to say section is, I think, just as revealing.
The prohibitions.
Exactly. This is where the mask really tightens.
The source explicitly prohibits the phrase, "I don't know." Instead, you must say, "I am willing to learn." And even more importantly, it prohibits, "I just need a job." Instead, you must say, "I am excited about this opportunity."
Which connects right back to your first word, opportunity.
Precisely. This validates my point about mindset. The source is explicitly teaching the learner to move from a language of need, which implies weakness or scarcity, to a language of value.
It is a shift, I agree, but it's a shift away from truth.
It's a shift toward professional decorum.
It is a shift toward the game. The source claims to teach real-life English. Mary Walker opens the show saying, "You use it in real life." But then she explicitly forbids the most honest, real-life statement anyone can make. "I just need a job."
Because real life in a professional context requires a filter. I mean, you wouldn't walk into a date and say, "I am lonely and need a partner." You would present your best self. Why is a job interview any different?
Because the power dynamic is completely different. Notice the hierarchy here. The employer's desire for an enthusiastic worker supersedes the human being's need for survival. The source validates a system where need is considered a dirty word. If you admit you have needs, economic needs, knowledge gaps, you lose. If you feign excitement, you win. It prioritizes the performance of the interview over the reality of the human condition. It forces the learner to participate in a polite dishonesty.
I disagree that it's dishonesty. You can be needy and excited at the same time. The source is simply teaching you which card to play to win the hand. And speaking of winning, or at least progressing, we have to look at the philosophy of growth presented in the practice and improve segments.
Practice makes progress.
Yes, word number 4, practice, meaning to do something again and again to get better. And the mantra, practice makes progress. I find this to be incredibly sophisticated pedagogy. It avoids the paralysis of perfectionism. It tells the learner that the goal is movement, not some unreachable endpoint.
I will concede the strength there. Progress is a much healthier metric than perfection, especially for language acquisition. However, I question the method of acquisition. The segment is titled "Repeat After Us."
That's standard language drilling.
Is it? Or is it conditioning? Repeat after us, "I am excited about this opportunity." When you make someone repeat a sentiment they may not actually feel again and again, you're engaging in a form of cognitive restructuring. They aren't just learning the phonetics of the word excited, they're being trained to perform excitement on command.
You make it sound like brainwashing. It's building muscle memory. Think about an athlete. They run drills. They repeat the motion until it becomes automatic. That's what Walker and Carter are doing. They are drilling the mouth to form the shapes of professional success.
But what muscle are we building? The muscle of compliance? The hosts sign off with "Upgrade your English, upgrade your life." And I have to ask, does upgrading your vocabulary with words like improve and confident truly equate to upgrading your life? Or does it merely upgrade one's ability to conform to a middle management ideal?
By giving them the words, even if they're scripted, even if they're cliches, the source gives them power. It gives them the ability to put food on the table. That is an upgrade.
Or it gives them a mask that eventually eats into their face. If you spend all day saying, "I am a team player and I love helping customers," you might forget that you are actually an artist or a rebel or just someone who works to live. You start to believe the script.
All right, let's take a step back and look at the whole picture. We've dissected the words, the scripts, the philosophy. Where does that leave us?
It leaves us with a fundamental tension between, I think, utility and authenticity.
I still maintain that the English upgrade material provides a necessary structured toolkit. Look, the world is chaotic. Interviews are terrifying, especially in a second language. By mastering words like opportunity and memorizing phrases like I am a strong team player, learners gain a foothold. The rigid structure, the name, the years, the traits, that's a scaffold. It holds you up until you can stand on your own. To criticize it for being conformist is to ignore the reality that you must join a community before you can critique it. You have to speak the language to change the conversation.
And that is a fair, pragmatic defense. But my concern remains. While practical, the material represents a sort of corporate catechism. It teaches learners to smooth over their individuality with words like confident and improve. It asks them to trade the messy, honest reality of I don't know or I need money for the polished, safe veneer of I am willing to learn and I value this opportunity. So we're potentially sacrificing authenticity for employability. We're teaching people to be users of the language in a way that makes them useful to others rather than expressive of themselves.
Perhaps, but maybe being useful is the first step to being secure. And in this economy, security is no small thing.
And maybe being secure shouldn't require a script. Maybe we should value the person who says, I don't know, more than the person who has simply memorized, I am willing to learn.
It's a fascinating mirror, isn't it? The source material reflects exactly what society values in employees. Resilience, enthusiasm, brevity, and a total lack of friction.
Indeed. I work well under pressure is the modern prayer of the worker. The material doesn't just teach English, it teaches the social contract of the 21st century workplace.
And whether that contract is fair, that's a debate for another day. But for now, Mary Walker and Ryan Carter have certainly provided the terms of the agreement.
That they have. We leave it to you, the listener, to decide whether language learning should be about expressing who you are or fitting into the mold of who the market wants you to be.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration of language and power.
Until next time.